It's been a while since I've done a simple sit down and talk video, but we have got a lot of things to discuss. Competitive Fortnite has been crazy lately. Just 2 days before the FNCS Grand Final started, we had a ton of pros get disqualified for using a controversial program, and Epic's response to the situation has certainly been interesting because now the Summit LAN format has completely changed. Today I'll run through the situation from start to finish and explain why it's left me with some concerns. Let's get straight into it. So to understand what happened, we need to go back to the initial thing that set off this crazy chain of events, and that was the German pro Jew getting unbanned on Twitch after 2 years. Stay with me here. Having gotten his account back, Jew decided to stream the Performance Evaluation Cup on the 23rd of April, and this is where the controversy begins. He was using an overlay in this tournament that allowed him to see how many solos were alive and also his total surge damage. And you may be thinking, this is pretty mad. Well, this was only the tip of the iceberg because there was an even stronger program going around. The program in question was developed by Joshua Slugger, the creator of Drop Calc, which is obviously a tool that most pros use in order to get the optimal drops. This program could read the game files, look at the bus path, and automatically create the best possible drop for a player. Now, this is what a lot of the pros got banned for, and you may think it doesn't look too bad. It's pretty much the same as Drop Calc. The issue isn't what it is, it's how it gets the information. It goes into the game files and can read them in real time, and that is a bigger problem. And honestly, I feel like I don't even need to point out that something that automatically calculates your drop for you would be bannable, but that will be important later on for this Sluggergate situation. This program was used by a select few pros for both the Eval Cup and the heats that had happened a few days prior, and the fact that this wasn't a public program is one of the big issues. It was being gatekept, which meant pros could have been using this for off-spawn battles without even declaring it. Now, Jew's stream did bring a lot of community attention to this, and that same day we had pros get disqualified for using the program. As you can see from this list, some big names involved. We had Iomzo, Josh, Syned, and Giras. So these are noteworthy pros that we're talking about here. Other pros got disqualified later on. Booga got taken out of finals just 1 hour before FNCS. There were actually a couple of players that did use the software that didn't get disqualified. That is a separate issue. I'm not sure why Epic did not enforce the rule consistently. We don't know their reasoning for that. But listen, a lot of people were very unhappy with the decision to ban pros, and honestly, at this stage, I don't think Epic have done anything wrong. Yes, they probably could have been more consistent with how they did the disqualifications, but if you use a software that automatically calculates the best drop for you, you can expect to be disqualified. So yeah, at this point it's all relatively routine. Pros use a TOS program, pros get disqualified from finals. Makes sense, right? Well, Epic then make a statement that completely changes things. During day one of the NA Central FNCS Grand Finals, they make this mad statement where they do reiterate that the program was against TOS, but they say that because of confusion in their rules, that the pros actually shouldn't have been banned. However, because the tournament is too far along at this stage, they can't be added back. And at this point, I've got issues because there isn't any confusion about this. It's a program that reads the game files. It's a program that's automatically calculating the best drop in real time, taking a screenshot of the game. It's obvious that something like that wouldn't be allowed, and yes, they can point to confusion in the rules, but I feel like it's just common sense. I wanted to see some backbone from Epic. I wanted to see them defend the disqualifications, but instead they kind of backtracked, and it really felt like they opened Pandora's box with this statement, because before, pros didn't really have much of a reason to complain. They used the TOS software, they then got disqualified. But now, Epic have said that they should be unbanned, but they can't because the tournament is too far along. So at this point, the pros are massively aggrieved. We've got hashtag restart FNCS going around left, right, and center. I actually think Fredoxy nailed it with this take where he states that why would we restart Grands to accommodate players that use the TOS software? That's exactly what I'm saying. I will say I do have some sympathy for the pros if they were tricked into using this software thinking it wasn't bannable. I know Joshua Slugger was saying that it was completely allowed, but I do think that some critical thinking is needed. It's something that reads the game files, and in my opinion, you just have to look at that and immediately assume it would be bannable. But the disqualified pros that saw this statement would have naturally been frustrated, and this is why after day 2 of EU FNCS, Epic Games make another shock statement, and this is even crazier than the last one. They announced that they're adding a completely new round to this season's FNCS, the second chance qualifier. This second statement allowed 25 new duos to qualify for the Summit LAN, as well as completely changing the format of the event. It's gone from a 12-game finals to now having 2 days of qualifiers and then an 8 8-game finals on the 3rd day. And this is completely unprecedented, so let me run you through my list of pros and cons about the announcement. So let's start with the positives. This does give a second chance for big names to qualify for the LAN. We're talking Mr. Savage, we're talking Mongrel, we're talking Queasy, Vanya, Seti. There's a lot of big players that we would love to see at LAN that do now have the opportunity. More than any other team though, I'd love to see Akira and Karama qualify, and that is because they are signed to Gentlemates, and we need as many M8 fans in Düsseldorf as we can fit in. This statement does also make up for the confusion of earlier, even though in my opinion I don't think there should be much confusion about whether a program that reads game files should be TOS or not. And also they've added 300k of extra prize pool. Definitely an expensive few days for Epic, and to think none of this may have happened if Dew hadn't have got unbanned on Twitch. I've got some issues with the new format which I'll get into in just a moment, but I will say it is somewhat nice to have something completely different for the Summit LAN. It does create that separation from globals, and potentially that could be a good thing. We'll have to see how that plays out. So yeah, before I get into my list of negatives, let me just reiterate that this announcement isn't bad by any means. There are still a lot of positives, and a lot of people in the community are really happy about it. I'm glad we'll see more pros at the LAN too. However, I have 3 main points as to why I am a little bit concerned about this announcement. The first is the lack of competitive integrity. I think fundamentally, you cannot add qualifier rounds for a tournament that has already ended, and here's the reason why. It's not fair on the duos that made the Summit LAN already. Take Shark and Teeny for example. Now they spent a lot of their tournament griefing Hutty and Fishix over at Wonky LAN to stop them from qualifying for the Summit LAN so that they would only have one team contesting them there. Now they did this successfully. Hutty and Fishix finished outside of the top 20, but Shark and Teeny did sacrifice some placements in order to achieve this. And it doesn't seem fair that Hutty and Fishix now have another chance to qualify despite the fact that Shark and Teeny made this sacrifice. I appreciate this announcement is a reaction to everything that happened before, but it does feel like it changes the dynamic of FNCS very drastically. My second point, this statement is pandering to the people that knowingly used TOS software. I wanted to see more players taking responsibility for their actions like Sined does excellently in this tweet. Instead, it felt like there was a lot of complaining, and honestly, this announcement kind of rewarded that. But what's done is done. Epic did make their bed with that first statement, and we will be seeing all of the pros have another opportunity to make the LAN. Now, my third and final point is the new format. I do just think it's a downgrade on what we had before. They've added 25 teams, and by the way, the distribution on that is something that's worth noting. We have 8 EU teams and then 7 NA Central. I know it's probably because there were more NA pros that were banned, but still kind of an interesting ratio. So here's the way things are now going to work. On day 1, we have the upper bracket with the 50 original qualified teams. The top 25 make it to the grand finals. On day 2, we have the lower bracket. That includes the bottom 25 from day 1, plus the 25 teams that made it through the second chance qualifier. 25 teams will qualify through that round, and that gives us the 50 duos that will partake in the grand finals on day 3. Now, previously this was going to be a 2-day finals with 12 games. Now it's just over the 1 day. It is at least 8 games. Initially they did say it was 6, so it's a slight improvement, but ultimately I just think having 12 games is way better. Let's not forget that we've had this format previously at Globals 2023, and it was not the most entertaining tournament of all time. With a 1-day finals, there's a lot of luck involved. Having 2 days does balance out the RNG quite nicely. Reese Hub's tweet here explains the situation very well, and it's worth pointing out that this issue goes beyond the Summit LAN too. Instead of the top 5 duos from the LAN qualifying for Globals, it is now the top 15. And if we're being realistic, at least 8 or 9 of those teams are going to be from EU, which means that Major 2 and 3 are just going to feel a bit flat because a lot of the best duos are already going to be qualified for Globals. The format isn't terrible by any means. It will still be very fun to watch. I do just think I preferred what we had before. Now, my overall gripe with this whole situation is how avoidable it was. The sequence of events should have been pros use the TOS program, pros are disqualified from FNCS, end of story. Instead, Epic have backed themselves into a corner, and now the entire LAN format is different, and they're spending an extra 300k on it, which yes, I suppose is a good thing, but that kind of money doesn't come out of thin air. Epic have just made huge cuts. They're not throwing around huge sums of money like they used to. This could be 300k that we're not going to see down the line. It could come out of next year's budget. I know that's just speculation. Maybe I'm being overly pessimistic, but I do also think there's better uses of this kind of money. It could fund a solo series, for example, rather than just having a lower bracket instead. Now look, I've said my piece, I do have my concerns, but at the end of the day, these changes are happening, so it's time to get used to them. Let's hope we see some cool names make it through the second chance qualifiers to make the first 2 days of the LAN very entertaining. Sure, Epic have acted in an interesting way, and I do think it was right to point out some of my issues with that, but listen, the Summit LAN is going to be great, the vibes are going to stay high, and I'm still super excited for it.